This blog is about doing nothing. That's right, doing nothing or at least as little as possible. And Dr. Dolittle, that's me. I'm busy learning to do less all the time, and it takes a lot of work. Things I ought to do, should do, must do, and of course, there's what I have to do. They kind of haunt me every day, and I'm always looking for a time when I actually feel like doing them. And with me, that can take a long time. Doing something just because I can, or even because I have to, no longer really cuts it. There's no joy in that for me. So I find myself waiting for a moment when I naturally feel like doing something, or better yet, I check my present cue of this moment to see what's currently surfacing, naturally surfacing, and then do that. That's called going with the flow. This makes planning my days kind of difficult, but also more interesting. Just waiting around to see what I will do next. And I'm learning to, as much as possible, not force things anymore. Just because I have to do it, I have it on my to-do list, is often not the best reason to do it. Or if I force myself to do things, they seldom come out as well. I have to have heart when I do things, if I can afford it. Now, I can't always afford it. With chores like picking up the dog yard, I might have to wait a very, very long time until I naturally felt like doing that. So for some things, I just have to do them, ready or not. So I'm not talking about those. So I do them like we all do. But more and more of the time, I'm learning to check to see what I feel like doing, and not even what I feel like doing, but what is also fresh and spontaneous in my mind that very instant. It's like spinning thread. Not that I've ever spun any thread, but drawing a thread out of the ether into something and then doing that spontaneously seems to have real merit. I get the best quality of me when I do things spontaneously. I'm kind of being humorous here, but in reality, I'm very serious about winging it in the moment and waiting for things to be right. Shakespeare said, quote, "Ripeness is all," unquote, and I believe that. But I find that it involves discipline, the discipline to do nothing and to wait. And I'm by nature somewhat impatient. If I'm doing something and I become aware that I have drifted off the edge of wanting to do it, now I stop doing it. I set it aside with no prejudice and pick up on something else, another thread of my life, or I just do nothing. For me now, doing nothing takes some real practice. And the same goes for like disappointments, running out of steam or inspiration, as well as finding myself up a blind alley, and I do that a lot. I used to kind of panic a bit when I ran out of future for a particular vein that I was mining. Just kind of lost interest. It's hard, but I'm learning to just let it go. And so I rewrite my future all day long, kind of on inspiration. Nothing is certain anymore. Everything is possible, and projects of great moment, and perceived importance are set aside as soon as I reach a point of no return with them, as in nothing coming back or just the simple loss of interest. Whether this is a good long-term strategy, I can't say. I can say it's by definition interesting, but also a bit fractured. Like most of us, I have dozens or hundreds of threads of interest. Who knows just where they will lead? It used to be that if I was invested in a project, I had or felt some obligation to see it through, come hell or high water. I think that's called perseverance. And while I still persevere, I'm now more persevering in doing things that are somehow lit up, alive, and that allow me to exercise some creativity and aren't too tedious. I like the space or aura of the creative me much better than that of my being slave to my own projects. But there is a risk factor. The risk is that I may not go or get to where I imagined that I was headed. And I may not be who I thought I was, or who I even once was. I hate reinventing myself just to save face, and save face with myself. And I'm learning to let parts of my self-image just die if need be. There's no use in keeping up appearances just for appearance's sake. I mean, for whom? You know. And about face used to embarrass me. But then I say to myself, who's watching? I don't even care what my own self thinks half the time. I just like the feeling of going with the flow, of doing what comes to mind and is fresh. And I find creativity in the moment's appearance. Like I find much more freedom and space. This spontaneous moment now is so spacious, at least relatively, compared to the baked-in staleness of the past or the uncertainty of my own expectations of the future. Living for or in the moment, certainly not a new concept, right? I remember be here now that Baba Ram Dass and others said. Is that what I'm learning? Is that what's happening to me now? If so, it's not in any way otherworldly or spiritual. That much I can say. Rather, it's practical and freeing. My fear, I guess, is that it's too eclectic, too much a tasting of here and a sipping of there. Or is this new approach just multitasking personified? Not a doing of nothing so much as a doing of everything, a thread at a time, but all threads being serviced as a need spontaneously arises. Anyway, do you get the idea? Am I a lone wolf or am I in good company? You tell me.